Good YouTube, Quinn Wade coming to y'all with some basketball analysis on Analysis Playground on YouTube. We're gonna talk about the Alex Caruso slash Josh Giddy trade. Oklahoma got rid of one of their youngest members on this roster. This is a roster that's 25 or under. Number one seed in the Western Conference last year. Sam Presti is a guy that has stockpiled a lot of picks, hasn't really turned them into players, but they showing that they're gelling, they're playing well together, and now he's trying to find that missing piece. We know Dort is one of their best players as a starter. We know that they like Chet Fetch Holmgren. He's one of their founding pieces. And you put that alongside Shea Gilgis Alexander and Jalen Williams. That's the foundation of what they're trying to do. All those guys are performing above average for their age. And even Shea being in the MVP conversation. But when you look at Alex Caruso, this is a guy that really defends. He plays hard. He can score a little bit. He averaged double figures in point, just like Josh Giddy. I don't think that the Thunder need more size when it comes to a player like Giddy. They got enough dunkers. They got enough athletes. And I can feel like them that he's the most expendable one, and he had the most value. Let's just be honest about it. Most people are high off Giddy than anybody else on this roster. They have a lot of filler on this roster. No disrespect, but a lot of these guys are under development. A lot of these guys are still figuring out their game, and he's one of them. But they made this move quick. When you look at this trade, you just see they wanted a defensive minded presence, to mix up, their lineups and have different ways they can play small, different ways they can go big because of Chet now. And obviously, Caruso looks older than he actually is. I would say that also people think he's been around a while, but he's 30 years old and he's only in his seventh season, is why I say that. Um, but Giddy is entering in his final year of his contract too. Same with Caruso, and Caruso just has more impact on the game than a player like Josh Giddy at this point. And they seen enough, that they done enough. And Giddy is the guy that they will cut, but they rather get somebody out of it that's worth keeping than just let Giddy walk for free. And I feel like that's the type of move that Sam Presti always does, and it never really becomes a surprise anymore. You rather get something than nothing. If you can get a player like Caruso, and that's something you have to do. And Giddy has shown that he can dunk the basketball. He showed that he can rebound the basketball. He's a willing passer. He's a guy that stays out the way. He's a guy that can fill up, some type of stats. He can score at a decent percentage. 47% is a decent, ability to score at the NBA level. He's a guy that would take the three, not great at making any, not a floor spacer, just a dunker spot type of guy, or a guy that can set a screen and roll to the basket but can't pop, which hurts. But it's pros and cons to picking these young players, especially because Josh Giddy himself is only 21 years old. He is 6'8". He is about 216 pounds. This was a guy that had a lot of question marks coming into that draft, especially drafting him at number 6 was really high for a lot of people in that 2021 draft. But at least he's able to play 80 games. At least he's able to stay healthy. His worst season was his rookie year, where he did only play 54 games. Then he increased to 76. Then he increased to 80, and he could have actually played 82 probably, but it didn't really matter to him. It was just about staying healthy for the postseason so they can make a run at the title, which, it makes sense. Like, that's a common thing nowadays, and it's something that people had to accept because that's what the coaches and the people are going to say, and they're going to allow you to do it. And all you can do is just prepare yourself for a tougher challenge, which is usually the playoffs. But I would say I really like this deal, more for, like, I will agree with a lot of people, more for Oklahoma City, because I'm a guy that like Caruso. Like, he's really gets into you. He really goes after the ball. He really can shoot a little bit. He can get to the basket a little bit. He knows how to stay out the way and be a camouflage type of guy, corner threes, top of the key three shooter type of guy, and that's kind of what you want to Giddy to be. But like I said, they off of him early because they just don't see the potential. Just remember, the Thunder had more time with this guy than anybody else in the NBA, which helps their case of why they didn't go all in on him. Plus, when you have those big three players already figured out, you know who you have to sprinkle around these guys with this type of guy. This type of guy is what we need to win, and you can't afford to play a four person that's only gonna give you 12, 7, and 6. At best, and that's not a winning formula based off the Western Conference. You got the Denver Nuggets, you got the Minnesota Timberwolves, and these other teams that's scratching and trying to find a way to get you to figure out that you're the team that's still a little behind when it comes to matchups. How do you get the best team around Shea that he can play his best basketball and everybody around him is a threat? And that's something they're still trying to figure out. Obviously, their backup big situation is another thing they got to figure out. You can't just rely on Chet Holmgren. Some people say they need to figure out their starting lineup and try to get a better power forward out in that lineup or a better small forward. I would say Jalen Williams is that guy, but you need more size and more rebounding. I would say you can find that in the draft. You can find some juniors and some sophomores that can come in and impact that role, because some of these guys eventually gonna have to be role players that just fit the system and fit what they're trying to do. And I just feel like Caruso is a guy that understood that from the first he stepped in with the Lakers, then going to the Bulls, and now coming here, he already knows what he's supposed to do, and he already knows his style of game, and he already knows that it works at the NBA level. That's something that you can't really say about drafting some of these guys. And Giddy was one of them. We didn't really know what to expect out of Giddy. I knew that he could be a starter. I knew that he can make some type of impact as a rebounder with his length and his size and his quickness and his IQ. And he ended up being a decent guy. He just don't do enough for you when it comes to playing against superstar Hall of Fame level teams, which is the problem with the playoffs. You needed somebody to step up outside of that big three, and they just couldn't find anybody. And now that they know that, now that they have that on footage, it's really just about moving forward with, some of these moves. And Sam Presti has always been aggressive with that. What move can we get to get over the hump? What move can we get to get in contention? And that's what the GM's supposed to do. And he's always trying to figure out how is I'm going to utilize these picks each and every draft to get a Jalen Williams, or to trade for a superstar potentially like Shea, or to get, in a position to where we can get a Chet Holmgren. Those are going to be few and far between, because you had to package them a little bit more, just because you're a playoff team now compared to where you were last year, which was not one of the best teams in the year. So you don't really get the high draft picks anymore, but you have so many to trade up to get the guy you actually want. This team could be very much better within the next 2 years, and possibly even in the NBA Finals, depending on the moves they make and depending on how the players, pan out. Because like they was already in the second round, and then you just go one more round after that, then you're in the NBA Finals. So they're figuring it out fast. And there's a lot of those veteran guys that's going to become available, as you already see. If they sign in extensions or they want to use their cap space, they have that too. Like, this is one of the most flexible situations that you could be in while looking at it and evaluating talent and trying to evaluate who you even want that's even veterans. They are in one of the best positions that you can be in, and that you have to give a lot of credit to Presti telling people, wait a little bit, we'll figure this out, we'll be back in the playoffs. We were just in the playoffs with Chris Paul and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander anyway. That's not too far off to where we at now. But at least we know the type of fiery, fierce type of guy that we need to, keep everybody involved. But I don't feel like trading for Giddy was a bad thing, especially if it gives you a Caruso. And Caruso is not going to be expensive, and he just fills a void that they need. They need more defenders. They need more floor spacers, and Giddy just not that. And Alex Caruso is. But we know it's going to be a short-term thing because Alex Caruso is already 30. He might only play 3 to 2 years with this team and be on to another one, but he do bring some experience in playoffs games play, because he made a difference, and the Bulls did make the playoffs before, not that long ago. So Caruso, with the Lakers is what people remember him most for, and he had fun on that roster. He learned a lot on that roster. He can bring a lot of that experience to this team and a lot of that knowledge to this team, and it's just fun, at the end of the day to see it. But other than that, Quinn Wade signing out, I side with the Thunder won this trade. I feel like Alex Caruso is the better player right now and probably can hang around and make a difference more than Giddy. But Giddy has a little upside of being a starter already, having a lot of things figured out. Now he's going to have a chip a little bit on his shoulder, showing you that he can be a little bit better than what people think. He can, use that as motivation and become a better player potentially. But, the Bulls are just doing this to get, some of those assets and trying to use Giddy like OKC to use him as a piece that can turn into a piece that can help us, and we can pick and choose over that because we have the player that you actually want, and that's why I just call them assets like they do too. Because if Giddy doesn't improve too much or he doesn't go down too much, he's always going to be valuable in the league because his size and his length is something you can't teach, and he's actually productive when he does get minutes, and he actually is somewhat of a difference maker, just not huge of an impact type of guy. But you got to pick your poison sometimes, even in trades, and that's why it makes sense for the Bulls to make this one, even if they didn't get a lot out of it. But I feel like the Thunder got exactly what they wanted, and that's all that matter. Nothing more, nothing less of that. Other than that, signing out. Let me know if you guys like the video. Let me know if you want more of that analysis. And if you do, comment, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell.